Hey, what's up? This is Dave Sankey. I'm going to make a little recording about how to basically program for the game BankShot, to program for RobotC in BankShot. Basically, you only need three moves. You have to have the robot in the starting position, the robot moves forward, and then it moves right, then it turns right, should I say, and then it moves forward. You can repeat that as many times as you want, as long as you're within 60 seconds. Once the program's done running, you pick up the robot, and you set it back in the starting position. Okay, let's see what we need to do. So the first thing that you need is RobotC. Whoops. Cool. So the first thing that you need is RobotC. So let's find it here. It should say RobotC graphical. I haven't used it on this program recently, so I'll have to do a little searching. So here's RobotC, and there's two there. There's RobotC and there's RobotC graphical. Be sure you select graphical, because that'll be different, and you'll be angry if you don't pick the right one. Is it going to come up? I'm just trying to kill a second. Beautiful. Okay. So here's RobotC. It's taking a second to load. Now, a couple of things. If you have not yet downloaded the firmware for RobotC, make sure that's plugged in. Don't select here firmware download. That doesn't work for me anyway. You can try it, but it doesn't work for me. Robot, download firmware into the standard file. In fact, you can go through this whole menu. The robot, the controller mode should be autonomous, no controller. The compiler target is a physical robot. Sometimes there's another option there. The platform is VEX IQ. So you can go through this whole checklist here and then download the firmware. You'll only have to do this once. So you might have done it already. If you turn on your robot and you see auto programs and tell-out programs, if you see that already, this is already done. You don't need to do it. You only need to do it once. All right, let's go to a new file. And the other thing you'll need to set up is the motor and sensor setup. If you have the Clawbot, it's the Clawbot by default. So if you've built a Clawbot, you don't have to do anything here. Okay? If you have a Clawbot with no sensors, you can go ahead and select that if you haven't put any of the sensors on it. I would advise you to not put any sensors on it and click on that. That'll make things a little easier. If you've done any modifications, the only thing you need to do is make sure that it matches whatever's on the screen here. So, if you have a standard Clawbot, you plug the motors into 1, 6, 10, and 11. If you've modified your robot in any way, just make sure that whatever is a motor shows up as a motor on the screen. Okay? The only ones that should say left and right for the drive motors are the 2, 1, and 6. And that'll make it control normally. Your program is probably not going to use these other motors, but they do need to be there. They do need to be selected correctly there. If this isn't right, the program won't run. Under devices, you might have some stuff here, but you don't need to worry about it. It will give you an error when you compile, but your program will run. So you don't need to worry about that. But this motor screen has to be right. There should be things in 1, 6, 10, and 11. If you just have the standard drive base, it's just 1 and 6. Okay, now that everything's set up, the rest of this, it'll be a little bit of trial and error, but it'll be pretty straightforward. You're going to have the robot go forward until it's in front of the ramp. You're going to have it turn right. Actually, if the robot will back up onto the ramp, you might have it turn left. But I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to turn right, because just depending on the weight distribution in the robot, sometimes it's easier to back it onto the ramp instead of go forward. And then, so it's going to go forward, and then with the standard robot, it would turn right and then go forward again. This number at the end is the speed. So if you want to go full speed to get a bunch of trials in, you can go ahead and put those all to 100. But sometimes if it's at full power 100, it kind of jerks the robot around a little bit and it's not as consistent, so you might want to leave those at 50. And then I would leave these all on rotations, and if it goes forward 1 and that doesn't work out, maybe you could try forward 1.3. Okay? Your students will have to adjust these three numbers through trial and error until they get it to go up the ramp. Now, once the program runs and it's done, the robot will actually just roll down. Gravity will take over because the program's over. So what you could do, if you need to, set multiple motors. I'm going to put 1 here. I'm going to give it a power of 1, which basically stops the motor. A power of 1 won't move your robot. The left motor and the right motor. So all this fourth command does is makes the robot essentially stop. It says give the motors a power of 1 so that it just holds it on the ramp. It's not actually going to move your robot. Okay, at this point you have to connect your USB into your robot, select download to robot, and you should be able to try it and see how well it works. Like I said, your students will have to adjust these numbers, and they'll probably enjoy doing so because they're in robot class, and that's what they like to do. Okay, I hope that's it. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment or just send me an email if you're in the county. Or anywhere, sankedd@sbac.edu. Or GM, yeah, right, yeah, sorry. Man, I should really redo this, but I'm not gonna.